opinions expressed by callers, guests, and hosts do not necessarily reflect those of the Black Talk Radio Network and Black Talk Media Project. Black Talk Radio is new black media for the new millennium.
Lift your eyes up, let your wise rise up. See the signs of the times. If it's time, rise up, rise up. When death and hell dwell among all God's people, when those we chose and trusted have become completely corrupted and inherently evil, when the feast that feeds you starves our father's children, when snuff, porn, and pedo forms begin to get top billing, rise up. When famine claims millions, when justice gives blind eyes to billions, when the Lord's anger is no longer feared, if his protection is gone and your enemies are near, if you've seen the seas spill over and the mountains shake, break, and fall, if the moon ever turns blood red and you can't see the sun at all, rise up. No matter if the prize is high in the skies or deep in perdition, if our leaders are globally despised and always seem to rise through attrition or blatant nepotism, if women and children have to live in impossible conditions, if you have to die due to someone else's damn decisions, rise up. When innocent citizens
Peace
perish.
And welcome to New Abolitionists Radio on the Black Talk Radio Network, a program that seeks to educate, inform, and agitate on the issue of 21st century legalized slavery. Hosted by social activist and spoken word poet Max Parthas and Black Talk Media Project founder Scotty Reed. On this program, we discuss recent news on legalized 21st century slavery and human trafficking, along with projects and people who help combat it. Today is the July 19th, 2017 broadcast of New Abolitionist Radio. We are a little more than a month away from the Millions for Prisoners Human Rights March on Washington, D.C., August 19th, the largest gathering of slavery abolitionists in U.S. history. If you aren't organizing a local sister event, joining one, or even better, saving your pennies to get to D.C. on the 19th, then you suck. That is all. On this day in history, in 1799, during Napoleon Bonaparte's Egyptian campaign, a French soldier discovered a black basalt slab inscribed with ancient writing near the town of Rosetta, which would later become known as the Rosetta Stone that resurrected a 2,000-year-old dead language. Also, one day before today, the 18th of July, in 2015, I became the first slavery abolitionist to stand at the SC state capitol and deliver a speech about ending slavery to a huge throng of South Carolinians since prior to 1865. It was called the Push Black and united multiple black and white organizations in opposition to the Confederate flag flying over the State House and also in opposition to hate rallies by white militias at the state capitol. Literally kicked their asses out of town, and they have not been back to any significant degree since. Now, on our radar, another video from NRA's Grant Stinchfield, a host at the NRA's online television network, has been released where delusional racist says that letting Black Lives Matter win, whatever that means, will result in white families being tortured and killed. Also, a study shows that cities rely more on fines for revenue if they have more black residents. We've been telling you that for years now. Using data from more than 9,000 cities, the researchers first found that cities with larger black populations rely more on fines and court fees to raise revenue. Then, U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced Wednesday that federal law officials will expand civil asset forfeiture, meaning they can more easily take your property without pressing criminal charges or following state laws. Baltimore police are caught on a body cam video planting drugs on innocent people. The next day, charges were dropped against those they had arrested, but days later, the same officer is called by prosecutors to testify in another case. The The family of late reggae icon and marijuana activist Peter Tosh is seeking answers after they say his son was left in a coma following an attack in a New Jersey jail where he was serving a 6-month sentence for pot possession charges. Our abolitionist in profile will be provided by Scotty Reed. Our rider of the 21st Century Underground Railroad is Desmond Ricks. Prosecutors in Detroit have dropped all charges as his murder conviction was thrown out June 1st after he served 25 years in prison. In the segment, For Freedom's Sake, A History of Rebellion, we will be remembering the 1733 St. John insurrection. You got a question or a comment? Call in toll free from anywhere in the world, basically, at 1-866-510-9025. That's 866-510-9025. You can chat with us and others by logging in at uberconference.com/Black Talk Radio Network. Peace. Once again, I'm Max Parthas. What's happening, Brother Scotty?
Hey, what's up, Comrade Max? How you doing today, sir?
Man, I've been trying to just conserve my energy because I got a lot of stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks. Both of us do, actually, got some stuff coming up. But next couple of weeks, I got some traveling to do. I'm heading back to Ohio. Haven't been there in several years now.
Cool. Yeah, man, you really are the road warrior, you and Tribal. So, yeah.
It seems like that, huh?
Yeah, y'all some true road warriors, man. Y'all get out there spreading that abolitionist message. And as I was just in BTR community looking at some of the lineup of the stories, man, just 5 years ago, I was not seeing many headlines with slavery in the title. And just the difference, man. And then, like earlier today, I tagged you in a post from recent Clemson University graduate A.D. Carson. He's been a guest on Black Talk Radio before as they were on the Clemson campus, pointing out that Benjamin Tillman was a racist, terrorist, and there shouldn't be any halls named after him. And so that's how I first became aware of A.D. Carson a couple of years ago, interviewed him, hooked up with him through social media, continue to follow him. He has graduated. His dissertation was done completely as a hip-hop album. Maybe the first time that's been done. And he just recently got hired at, I think it's the University of Virginia. But he has a track in his dissertation where he mentions that the 13th Amendment did not abolish slavery. Now, I wasn't even aware of that till he pointed that out to me, because I asked him, as a hip-hop historian, was Qadir Latif's track, Hip Hop Needs Immense Change. Was that the first instance of the 13th Amendment? Or he didn't mention the 13th Amendment, but he said slavery wasn't abolished when he said, and they're lying when they told you slavery was abolished. But then now I remember earlier that Kanye West came out with New Slaves, and he mentioned the CCA and private prisons and whatnot. So Max, man, from 5 years ago to launching his program, from this so-called mass incarceration being discussed in its proper context, which is slavery, we've taken it from discussing it with people, or it has gone from discussing it with people only online among a few hundred, to now we're seeing headlines and hip-hop tracks coming out talking about slavery never been abolished. I feel great about that, Max.
It is good because you're looking, Scotty. Not everybody is looking. Like, they don't even see the slavery. How can they see the changes and advancements? But we are in a blessed position. I think that what was going to happen was going to happen. And we just happen to be the people there at the time with the tools and the abilities to help really bring this thing more into the public perspective. Because there's always been fighters. We found that out. There's always been fighters. I think me and you were talking the other day about Brother Lee Woods. And I was reminding you when you were saying, how frustrating it is I said, remember, Lee Wood's been fighting this for like 45 years.
Right,
Imagine the frustration he went through, you know what I mean?
I mean, he comes out, and I think he was aided in publishing that book by, I think her name was Barbara Esposito or something like that. But Lee Wood wrote Prison Slavery in 1971, where it specifically mentions the 13th Amendment. And all of these different authors, writers, historians, scholars, much of their work is talked about today, but I bet you if I go up to a random person on the street and say, do you know who Lee Wood is and what his contribution is to consciousness, I bet you they'd be like, Wood who? Lee who? Who you talking, what you talking about? And it's a travesty that book has been buried, man. And that's why I've made a point in, recently in some of my media production to mention his name because he deserves that due. And actually, to be honest with you, he had a program with us here on Black Talk Radio Network, which preceded this program, New Abolitionist Radio. So, Mr. Wood has made a great contribution, and, we're just building on what he started.
He's not going to be forgotten here, that's for sure. He has influenced everything that we do and laid the groundwork for us. He made life a lot easier for us because some of the things were already presented and formed before we came along. As I said, what will be, and I'm very proud to be a part of this. I was asking Tribal today because some of the things that I've been hearing, I said, do you really think that they'll write about us in the history books? Because, I feel like I'm a nobody from nowhere doing things I ain't got no business doing. That's basically where I'm coming from. I'm just the average dude. You know what I mean? When people talk about what I'm doing special, I look at it as like, no, y'all got it backwards. I'm the normal one. The people that ain't doing nothing, that's special. Because I expect them to do. They're supposed to be doing something. In every way you can imagine, they should be doing something, but they're not. And that is not normal. So I'm thinking to myself like that. And she's like, well, yeah, I think they will. I said, when? She said, probably after we're dead. So, at least my grandchildren will have something to read about. Well, that'll be cool.
The greatest legacy that abolitionists can leave is true freedom and an end to institutional slavery. As I mentioned to my local congressman representing the 10th District of North Carolina Congressional District, where he talking about a bill they introduced to tackle human trafficking. And, I let him know, hey, that kind of human trafficking, it's already illegal. What about the legal kind with these prisoners being trafficked all across the United States and by private prisons as well? What about the 13th Amendment? What about slavery? And I remember talking to one of your staff members where he tried to get funny with me, talking about some prisoners picking up trash on the side of the road, when we know they're involved in every major industry that you can think of, from call center work to processing food to picking produce, that work that Americans, they say, won't do. But they don't tell you about those Americans that's out there doing it because they slaves. That's why. And I don't mean that.
It's only a matter of time before they become doctors in prison and start doing surgery in prison.
Man. So, yeah. So, man, yeah. So I don't want to take up too much time. I did want to remind you, though, Max, we don't do the abolitionists in profile anymore. I think we've done them all except for maybe some of the modern ones. But remember, we was taking that one out and replacing it with the rebellion. Because we probably covered every abolition, and we done some of them 2 and 3 times.
No, I don't think so. I have a list of abolitionists. Before you started doing them, I had this list that I had acquired that showed sometimes the abolitionists only left behind a single speech that somebody had wrote down that they did at a venue, or others who were not recorded in history in many ways, so they were forgotten. And there was hundreds of those. I mean, not everybody was well known. So there was hundreds of abolitionists we still haven't even touched.
Well, if you could get me that list, because I've ran out of, I keep coming across the same ones online.
Well, what we might have to do is start just reading those letters or those words that they left behind from the unknown abolitionists, because it's the unknown abolitionists that makes the biggest difference in the world. Collectively coming together, your names might not ever make it to the history book, but damn it, you were there and you participated and you said something, and to you, that's enough, ain't it?
Max, I was just thinking about that when I heard somebody say, and names ain't important, because when you start naming names, people want to act like you attacking the person and not what was said or the ideology. But I heard a person say that they've only seen a few great black men in their lifetime. I guess they ain't never seen no great black women, but they mentioned men, and this was a male. And they said Martin Luther King Jr., they said Malcolm X. I think that's about it. I can't remember right now who else they said. And I was saying, so those were the only great black men, huh? But are you not considering that those men that you named had a whole bunch of men and women and children behind them? That was their support network, and that the work didn't get done without them. Okay? Mm-hmm. It didn't. We're talking about human beings. No individual can carry a movement by themselves. It takes collective prudence, as Dave likes to say on Tando Radio Show. It takes collective prudence. So we don't know who all the unnamed persons who participated in the movements that those men whose names we know were a part of, but that just goes to what you just said, Max. There are many abolitionists who are not written down in the history books, and we may find a scrap here or a scrap there, but I'll tell you there's probably many more that there is nothing written about them, and we will never know their names, but when we transition, we certainly will greet them.
Yes, indeed. And I'll do my best to try to remember their contributions one way or another. Over the years, we've covered hundreds, as you said, of abolitionists whose stories would have not really been told in the context that we provide had it not been for us. Because, they were being, their narratives were being twisted and changed. I mean, look at what's happening with Harriet Tubman right now. They've already voted to put Harriet Tubman on the $20. I dread the day. I'll never use a $20 bill ever again. I really don't want to use any of the money, but I'll never use a $20 bill ever again. Can you imagine when someone buys sex with a stack of Tubmans, or if they go and sell a slave in Libya and somebody gives them 3 or 4 Tubmans for it, or if you're buying drugs, or if you're robbing somebody, or anything that's going on that's criminal and corrupt and evil will now have her face on it.
Right, especially given the connection.
Twisted. I mean, it's the thing she fought against, capitalism and slavery, and now they're making it a poster child for it.
Yeah, so we thinking on the same page, man, because people want to deny, but you can't deny the connection between capitalism and slavery, especially with the letters of Thomas Jefferson calling his victims capital. And then when you get to the root word of capital, which is the Latin, and it talks about counting your victims to determine your wealth. And so I'm not one of those people that's big on government systems and stuff like that, the different forms of communism, socialism, capitalism. All I know is what I live under. And I've studied the history of this country. Don't ask me nothing about what I think about socialism or what I think about communism. I can give you my opinion, but it's not really going to be all that informed. But I do know one thing, that capitalism was the main driver of slavery.
Yes. You got to fight it all simultaneously. I was discussing these things with Tribal earlier today in a little ride that we took, and I asked, what are the tools of slavery? I mean, what are the tools that are used to keep and maintain slavery? And she was a little bit taken aback by the question. I just ask these things out of the blue sometimes. It's what I do. I think too much. And she said, what do you mean? I mean, like, racism is a tool for slavery. Racism was developed in order to justify slavery, the enslavement of the Africans, in the genocide of the Native Americans, the red and the black man. So this is what slavery does. It's a tool this is what racism does. It's a tool to justify slavery. What else is a tool that they use to keep slavery into play? The justice system, the prisons, the police forces, and it just a number of things. But identifying them so you can readily understand their connection to slavery really helps in putting the bigger picture together. Politics is one of those things that you were just mentioning. Politics dominated by racist white supremacists, right. Which is where I wanted to start our program today with some breaking news. And we've been following this now for 2 weeks to see how the narratives are unfolding. And the NRA's come out with another video. Now it's a discussion they had with one of their regular show hosts on the NRA's channel. And this man, I don't even want to say what he said. I want you people to hear it, because I want them to hear it with their own ears so you understand what you're dealing with. Now, these are lunatics. Sociopaths of the highest order who are so evil and so twisted that they would victimize the people. They would make themselves the victim in order to justify their oppression, like those tools I was just talking about, where they make it seem like they're the ones dying and they're the ones being oppressed and they are subject to racism, while all around them, everybody who doesn't look like them is either going to prison or dying without an army, a police force, an industry, no banks, no currencies. But they're calling us the greatest threat to human civilization.
But Max, now see, this is why I point out to people, okay, that slavery affects more than just black people, all right? Are we disproportionately targeted, and are the videos circulated for entertainment purposes more than anyone else's? Yes. And then that gives you the perception that it's only happening to us. But when you drill down into the data and you really are looking for these reports, you will see that they shot a little Asian kid who had a pen in his hand in California not that long ago.
Day before he graduated.
Day before he graduated. Okay? We have given reports about, I forget the guy's name down in Florida, where all they left was the imprint of his body with all this yellow chemicals on the wall where they didn't gas him. That was a white boy. So these people right here, they're either choosing to ignore that their family members or people from their community is ending up in slavery or on a morgue slab as a result of a slave catcher like that woman up in Minneapolis. They're either choosing to ignore it or they're ignorant of the fact, because the mainstream media wants you to think that wants the wider public to think it's only affecting black people. Because when it comes to black people, the dominant population doesn't have any empathy. But if you showed them picture after picture, video, snuff film after snuff film of them getting snuffed out by these cops, by these slave catchers, of them getting beaten in these prisons and jails and being forced to work the fields like pre-1865 victims of slavery, then they might have a different perspective. But I believe the media purposely hides it from them. So when these people come at us like they're under attack, they're under assault, you are. It ain't by us, though. So why you choosing to ignore what's happening, who your real enemy is?
You're right, Scotty. This is the first time in history where white people have been subject to chattel slavery. Picture that. So there are a lot of people of all colors being affected on this on a regular basis. Like you said, the woman out in Minneapolis is the most recent example, but it still doesn't indicate anything even remotely describing racism, institutional racism, which is what they talk about in the NRA, where they say black people are even capable of racism because they're incapable of racism.
See, Max.
But that's what they call it.
Max, I asked, and I do see we got a caller. And if you want me to play that video, I'm having trouble identifying which one in our planning group. But
all right,
let me say this, though, because I put out a video the other day, Max. So I'm putting this question out there to the listeners. Anybody want to chime in? But I'm asking Max right now. Okay, so the N-word appears on Walmart's website. For those that know how the retail industry works, if you get a partnership with Walmart, or even if you go to Amazon, pretty much anybody could list stuff on Amazon. So apparently, one of the vendors of Walmart who has access to their website posted a do-rag cap or something like that, and they said it came in one color, nigger brown. So the whole Twitterverse, which Twitter's known for having a large, population of black people, oh, they went crazy. They went nuts over it. They were like, oh, this is racism. Oh, how dare they put nigger on the website. And so I'm saying, but we've been telling you for years that Walmart is one of those companies that uses prison slave labor. You know, when you return those packages that you got for Christmas, you're returning gifts and stuff like that. Well, somebody has to break those packages down and repackage them. Guess who's doing that? Okay, victims of modern day slavery are doing that. But they don't seem to register the same as somebody calling you a nigger. I would think that somebody putting you into slavery would cause a much bigger outrage than somebody calling you a name. So my question is racism being used to distract from, to hide, to make people emotional and unconcerned about slavery? That's my question.
I tend to follow Occam's razor on most difficult questions, which basically means the simplest answer is usually the right one. And in this case, and in most cases, when you see these two words put together, spelling, because that's what they're doing, it's a spell to influence your thought process. Nigger brown. You associate one with the other. So when you see brown, you think nigger. It's a very simple psychological aspect to it. And that is the reason why it is listed on their website as nigger brown. It's not doo-doo brown. It's not tree bark brown. It's not dirt brown. It's nigger brown, because they want those two words associated with each other.
Okay, but my question is, are we being distracted by racism, which you rightly stated is a tool of slavery, but we're more concerned about racism than slavery? That's what it seems to me.
Yes, Scotty, there are people who are more concerned about racism than slavery, not seeing that the racism couldn't exist without the power behind it that slavery provides. So they are more interested in that, but there are also people who are more interested in mass incarceration than slavery. And there are people who are more interested in police reform than slavery, and prison abolition than slavery. So there are all these tools that are occurring that are tools of slavers and for slavery to function that people are grasping onto and focusing on as if they are the source of everything. Racism is the source of it all. We got to get rid of racism. No, prisons are the source of it all. We got to get rid of prisons. And it reminds me of the old African tale about the 6 blind men and the elephant, where they're surrounding an elephant, these old wise blind men, and everybody feels a different part, and then each one that feels that part describes something completely wrong. One guy grabs the trunk and goes, this is a serpent. The other guy got his tail, he's like, this is a lion. And somebody grabs the legs and goes, this is a tree. It's slavery. It's one big thing, and all of those are components of it. But you can't accept, for some reason, this cognitive dissonance and doublethink thing doesn't allow you to accept that as fact. And when you do, your whole perspective changes.
So we got a caller, Max, before we play that video. I don't know if this
is the last one in the last post in our planning page.
Okay, I'll look for
that.
You
have to open the page, and then the video is inside the page.
We got a call from Colombia. I don't want to say.
All right, my people from Colombia. What's happening, Colombia? Welcome to New Abolitionist Radio.
Peace. This is Palmetto Star, the Ratchet Revolutionary. Actually calling from Atlanta.
All right.
I still got my Colombian number.
What's happening, brother?
What's going on, Max and Scotty?
Yeah, man.
Peace. Good to hear from you. I ain't heard you in a while. Yeah.
I think he was our first caller, Scotty. Literally.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm still rocking with y'all, and that's not going to change. And as long as you guys are fighting that righteous fight, us abolitionists need to, get together, stick together, and, fight together. You know what I'm saying? So definitely a part of the movement that y'all doing. Love and support what you're saying. I just wanted to add on to the conversation when you were talking about slavery and how, now white people are being enslaved and chattel slavery amongst white people. But as Neely Fuller once said, and I think he really sort of embodied what is happening right now, that white people have what you call white throwaways or white.
It's called white sacrifice.
That they have population. They have a segment of the population that they use, and they don't care about slavery because at the same time that it does, they are being enslaved themselves because they effectively enslaved themselves after slavery. After chattel slavery truly ended and they started doing the 40-hour work week and acting like everybody's, working and doing the same thing. There was no 40-hour work week prior to the end of the slave trade, in America. There was no 40-hour work week or anything like that. So they effectively enslaved their population then, just so they could still have control, So so if they had to white sacrifice, that's the word I was looking for.
Right.
That Neely Fuller said, they do have a segment of the population that they're willing to sacrifice.
Yeah, they're called poor whites. That's what they're called. They're Palmetto. They're called poor whites. They live in the areas like where I live in, where there's no jobs and the drug trade is running strong because, again, there's no jobs. And then when there's no jobs and you're feeling depressed, people self-medicate. So, they locking up a lot of these people around here, man. So, yeah, they do sacrifice it. But this is where I part ways with that. Because when we see all the black board members of the GEO group, when we look at CCA and we see the son, not the grandson, not the great-grandson, but the son of Thurgood Marshall Jr. sitting on the board of a prison slave company, and then you had Barack Obama, who's a constitutional lawyer who modeled himself, tried to, latch on to the image of Abraham Lincoln, and then finding out that this guy is a descendant of John Punch, who was the first person sentenced to slavery by an authority in the Virginia Governor's Council, sentenced him to slavery for running away from his bond servant duties and put him in slavery for a lifetime. And then to find out that that's Barack Obama's Barack Obama's an ancestor. And then for him, that man knows that slavery was never abolished. And then so, I want us to all acknowledge our roles in it. And I draw the line on you either for slavery or you against it.
Against it. Hey, Palmetto, I got to disagree with you on one thing, and then I want to praise you on another, if you don't mind.
All right.
The first thing I would disagree with you on is the comparison of the 40-hour work week to slavery. It may have had its roots in slavery, but slavery is incomparable to anything else. There is no metaphor for what is occurring in slavery.
I'll agree with that. I agree.
So that's a problem that we do run across right now, where people start calling things slavery when they aren't slavery, and then they can't see real slavery because they're so confused about what slavery even is. And what I want to praise you for is, brother, we're one day removed from making history in Columbia, South Carolina 2 years ago. When we ran, you and myself and Erica Walker and many other organizations and groups and people got together. We crossed lines, we crossed ideologies, and we stood in opposition against that. What was going on in South Carolina with these racist white supremacists who were allowed to come to the state grounds and just terrorize us, and to the point where even the governor told the entire state that instead of going and opposing them, just stay home. Like, what? Yeah. And we came out there and we raised hell. They had hundreds of police and military out there trying to manage everything. But we raised hell and we made an impact, and they ain't been back like that since. And they've been doing it every year before that.
Exactly. Yeah,
Word,
I, that was definitely commendable, and also, that served as, a blueprint to a lot of the things that I'm doing as Minister of Information of the Huey P. Newton Gun Club. I've taken that blueprint that we established in Columbia, and setting and unifying the street tribes out here, and getting things popping out here in Atlanta, and so not only has what I'm saying is that not only has that affected the residents of Columbia, South Carolina, but now I'm taking to a global scale to where where we will get that liberation, where we will get that freedom, where we will get that, we will self-emancipate and get rid of this the true slavery, the criminal justice system, all of that stuff. So we need to get rid of all of that. And I do ascribe to being an abolitionist as well as a revolutionary. So that's taking that motto and seeing that happen, in real time. What I'm saying, it was definitely empowering.
Yeah, we inspired the world. But before you go and take this global, take a step back a minute and help us get this together in D.C. on the 19th. If we could do the same thing in D.C. on the 19th, and we come together across all these ideologies in unity and opposition against all the things that slavery offers this country, I think that we could be very, very successful
Max,
in our goals.
I would love for him to roll with us up there, man, along with the Carolina contingent.
Definitely. Well, we could definitely talk about that.
I think that we could be very, very successful in our goals.
I would love to roll with us up there. Otis, man, we getting background. If you got the radio program on in the background, we getting feedback from you. Max, we got a couple of other callers.
All right, let's take a couple callers, then we'll get into that NRA thing and discuss that, because people can want to hear what they had to say and they want to hear what we have to say.
Hey, Palmetto, it was
if
good.
you want to ride with us, just contact us after the program, man. I've already booked 3 rooms in Maryland, and we've arranged for a rental for as many as 8 people. So, once we get it all settled before then, we'll have a nice little entourage on our way to D.C., and that's going to be something special.
No doubt.
Yeah, it'll be great to meet you, man, face to face.
Word. Next caller, Scotty Reed. Who else is on the line?
Yeah, Max, give me a second. Is my audio not coming in correctly? Seem like I might be on a delay or something.
No, you sound okay to me.
Okay.
A little bit lower than normal, but you sound all right. I mean, clear enough.
Okay, let's go to 919. Thanks for calling in to New Abolitionist Radio. What's your name and what's your question or comment? 919, Oxford. Did you have a question or comment? Last 45343. Okay, maybe
just press star to unmute yourself if you do have a question or comment, and make sure your phone is unmuted.
All right, Max, let's roll into this video while I got it up. It kept trying to play ads and stuff, so you know how busy.
All right, well, here we are. This is the NRA TV host warns white families will be tortured and killed if Black Lives Matter succeeds.
Race relations are strained here in America after 8 years of Barack Obama, but nowhere is near as bad as it is in South Africa, where white farmers are being tortured and killed almost every day in racist violence. It is a warning for the United States that you will never hear from the mainstream media in this country. Veteran Army Ranger and Frontlines correspondent Chuck Holton joins me with more on this. Chuck, I know you've been looking into this particularly and doing some research, and really the things that we're starting to learn are frightening, and I guess it's not shocking that the mainstream media is not talking about this.
Right. The parallels between what's happening in South Africa and the blatant racism and violence that we're seeing from people like the Black Lives Matter crowd, from people like Louis Farrakhan and his minions, is happening in spades in South Africa. The violence against farmers is being called for by government officials. It's being celebrated by politicians. And, you know, the scary thing is it's kind of a warning for what could happen in the United States if we continue to let this get out of control, to go down this path of, you know, just this racial tension, this racial hatred that is being foisted on the American culture by the Black Lives Matter crowd. You know, I was at this very peaceful march over the weekend, this women's march, and there were a lot of Black Lives Matter people there. And, you know, when you talk to people, they're all angry about this video that Dana Lash put out that said that, hey, when you go around and break things and burn cars and spray paint buildings, that you leave the police no choice but to do their job. And somehow that was equated as a call for violence. That's not a call for violence. That's saying when you act like an idiot, the police come and do what the police are supposed to do when you act like an idiot, and that is arrest you. And, you know, somehow, like this guy on Fox last night on Martha McCallum's show, somehow trying to say that that's us calling for violence. It's exactly the opposite. It's us calling out the violent and saying this has to stop. And if you want to see why it has to stop, you look at South Africa. Over between 3,000 and 4,000 white South Africans have been killed in the most horrific ways, brutalized, raped, tortured, drugged behind cars, had drills taken to them, some really horrific things.
And Chuck, one common theme here with what's going on in South Africa is that it is very hard to get a firearm now in South Africa as well to protect yourself. And many of these people that are being victimized need that kind of protection. When we see what's going on in America, specifically California, look, there's another bill in California to limit the one gun a month plan that they have in California to all guns, not just handguns. If you don't think your Second Amendment rights can be destroyed, just look at California, just look at Europe, just look at South Africa. And once they take the guns away from you, now look at what's going on. They operate with impunity to do whatever they want to the citizenry, and we're seeing that in South Africa now.
Did you hear these fools, Scotty? Like this dangerous person.
Yeah, this is classic propaganda. See, this is why I'm glad. No, I'm not going to say I'm glad. But as far as I know, you know, there's no BLM or Black Lives Matter anywhere connected to this abolitionist movement. We're abolitionists, okay? So you're not going to paint us into a corner of black versus white. And no, this is abolitionists versus slavers. So this is about knowing your enemy and knowing his tools and his tactics and guarding yourself against those things. So what can they say about the abolitionist movement? And one of the things they didn't mention, they mentioned, some burning of buildings or destruction of property, and then the police are forced to come out and do their job. Well, it's the police that cause those few individuals, because most of the individuals that be out there are peaceful, okay? We can't control everybody, that comes out, and then the system has a way of sending agent provocateurs to discredit a movement, okay? So we know the technology, but they never mention that the reason that these people are out here doing what they're doing is because some American citizen has been gunned down unjustly by a slave catcher. See, they didn't mention any of that. None of the police brutality. And what does South Africa got to do with here? I don't see no white people by the thousands being dragged out into the streets and shot or murdered. And then all of the victims, I did look up the information, all of the victims are not white. That's on these farms that's getting killed. But why are they getting killed? Okay, let's think about that. Why are they being killed? Well, it may have something to do with some resentment of, I don't know how long, these Europeans have been there abusing these black people, and they probably want their country back, to borrow, these kind of white people's terminology. Maybe they want their country back. Catch a clue. and get out and go back to wherever you came from. Okay? So, I mean, I'm just trying to explain their way of thinking. It's not that I think like that, but, they're not considering a whole lot of things because, that's not what they're on there to do. They're out there to paint this as a race war when it's not. I've seen white people, large numbers of white people out there with Black Lives Matter banners. Okay? Who's funding Black Lives Matter? They ain't getting millions of dollars from the black community, that's for darn sure. Who they getting it from? The George Soros types, the Democratic super donors, and what have you. And matter of fact, correct me if I'm wrong, Max, because I am never one to assume he knows everything. But as far as I have seen or heard or read, Black Lives Matter has never talked about slavery outside of Brother DeBaha from down there in South Carolina. That's the only one I have heard speak on slavery. The rest of them, no. They on these, what they call it, intersectionality, complicated, jib-jabberish, and, theories. And no, it's simple. It's slavery. Just call it slavery. Call it what it is. We don't need all this intersectionality and all this and that. You call yourself out there trying to defend black lives or speak up for black lives that's being murdered by slave catchers, then why you not talking about slavery then? They're on that mass incarceration stuff. And so, bless their hearts. I'm not saying this from a mean-spirited way because most of these are young people. And maybe they haven't come into the knowledge of the 13th Amendment. Except for Brother DeBaha, but we know how he got kicked off that panel where NPR was filming when he was supposed to be the one as the local representative of Black Lives Matter, and they kicked him off the panel.
Yep, I was there. I remember very clearly, man.
You got it on video.
Yep. There's two groups of Black Lives Matters. There's the individual local organization, and then there's the national organization. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't have nothing to do with the national organization. I don't want to have nothing to do with the national organization. I'm not feeling the narratives that they put out. I'm still haven't seen or heard anything about this $100 million from George Soros. I don't trust where that's coming from. But the individuals who have taken up the call in local arenas have adopted a mindset that is true, that Black lives must matter, that Black lives do matter. And they act accordingly, and they're trying to organize and do things in their local communities with little to no help from the main office at all.
Right,
so people like
we got
Muhyiddin DeBaha is doing what he needs to do. He's an abolitionist. He's a Black Lives Matter representative for Charleston, South Carolina, like Sharon Smith out in also in South Carolina or in North Carolina, and the Quaker community and the Black Lives Matter community in Asheville, North Carolina. They're doing what they need to do and representing Black Lives Matter on a local individual level. But that
right.
national organization, I don't know nothing about it, and I don't trust it.
Well, I go to their, all you got to do is go to their website, and they're talking about LGBT issues and things of that nature, and intersectionality and all that kind of stuff. But, again, there are individuals that we have come across that's associated with Black Lives Matter, and they have been engaged in abolitionist work, whether they realize it or not, like the Boston chapter that got that private meeting behind the scenes with Hillary Clinton and made her give an account for herself for taking private prison lobbyist money. And then you want to act like you care about black people, and you want to parade these mothers of the murdered black children out on a stage, and you taking money from private prison companies. So again, not attacking the organization, just, that, hey, don't assume that though that organization speaks for all black people, because they don't. All right. Do we have dealings with some of them? Yes, we do, as abolitionists, because they recognize that slavery has never been abolished. But this is all these racist propagandas of the NRA is trying to do. They're trying to make it about race. instead of justice.
Yes. And see, that is the key right there. You can recognize the tools being used against you. And that makes all the difference in the world. It doesn't matter if what those tools are lies or truth. They're using them to accomplish something. And the something is to empower racists with very little to no mental capacity whatsoever for reality to pick up arms and just start indiscriminately killing black people or anybody based on the color of their skin. Because it could be somebody from Mexico, somebody from India, somebody from Italy. It could be a Sicilian, and he looked kind of dark, so shoot him. This is what they're trying to accomplish in order to create a condition where they can take over the whole damn country. They've already put their people in play.
Well, they're not going to do that. They're not going to be able to do that. But like I said in that video a couple of weeks ago, that video is a call to the slave patrols. That's what it is. That's the same sort of calls that went out whenever Africans were rebelling on a plantation. Let's send the word out. Everybody come, bring your guns. And so, the more things change, the more they stay the same. It all circles back to slavery.
I want to break down a couple more points about this video. First of all, we knew in advance that Trump would have a purpose here for us. For us, our purpose that he would fulfill would be to expose the blatant institutional racism, the oppression, and everything that has been done and is being done on levels of corruptions we haven't seen since the 1800s. And he has done that. And this man right here is a U.S. Army Ranger. This is the type of dude that would have the ear of the senators or the congressmen and does. And he's out there talking about how black people are such a great threat that that in South Africa, over 3,000 white people have been slaughtered in the most horrible ways. Let me tell you something, Mr. U.S. Ranger. More than 3,000 people were slaughtered in horrendous ways last year here in America between the police and the jails and the prisons. More than 3,000. Just police killings alone was as high as 1,400. And that's not counting the 2,000 or 2,500 that die in jails and prisons. Because we can't count all of the ones that simply died over neglect, which is murder. We can't count the people that committed suicide after, like Sandra Bland's, for instance, and many others that reported on, which again is murder. So I don't know what you're talking about, these slaughters that you should be so frightened of, that all white people need to take up arms against anyone who protests, and anyone who protests who happens to have dark skin is Black Lives Matter. These narratives are ridiculous at face value and should be completely dismissed as such.
Hey, Max, one
Yes.
point to your point is he just legitimized, quote unquote, Al-Qaeda or ISIS, because isn't that why they say they attack people? It's because of the millions, let me say again, millions of Arabs and black people and brown people who are quote unquote Muslims. You killed 1 million in Iraq alone. I wonder if he is one of those special forces unit that went into Libya and assisted those terrorists in overthrowing U.S. ally. Again, this is facts, people. Libya was an ally of the United States when Barack Obama sent Hillary Clinton over there to overthrow that country. And now that country is practicing slavery in open markets like it was, back in the 1600s or 1700s. Arabs enslaving Africans is happening. That's from the United Nations. So he's the last person. These are the last people to need to be talking about some kind of genocide against white people or that. Man, y'all have killed millions. Millions. I hate to say how many. Probably over 1 billion if we want to go back to Vietnam.
You're right. You're right, Scotty. They are the last people to have anything to say, but they are the first, and they control a lot of the media. They have a lot of the money. They have the access, the power, the legislators in their pockets. It's so easy to dismiss them and go, you know what, F you. I don't care about you. But you have to recognize the power that they exercise. and their end game and their goals that they're trying to achieve. And those goals include genocide. And that's something real. It's already going on to a very large degree, because a slow genocide is a genocide just the same as a quick one. But they're talking about some slaughters right now going on, and they're using fear mongering on levels that are just, out of this world. They say everybody black is Black Lives Matter. But let me tell you something that is true. Black Lives Matter as an organization is not a threat to white supremacy. Black Lives Matter as an abolitionist platform is a threat. If they ever adopt the stance of abolition instead of reform, that's a threat. Because now they have all these organizations and groups to back them up and the money to back them up, and they're heading towards abolition. Then you need to start worrying about things, because everything you hold dear could be taken away from you, because you'll no longer have access to that power and authority which is given to you through slavery. Well, that's all I want to say about that. If we got any other calls, it's almost 9 o'clock. Might as well take a couple more and then finish off with a few more stories that we can squeeze in. So if you're on the line and you want to chime in, and pardon my ranting, this is a passionate thing we're doing, but just press ** and be sure that your phone is unmuted.
Yeah, you can continue, Max.
All right. Well, that's as much as I want to cover on that for now. I think people should look at the video and make up their own minds about what they're saying. And remember what this represents. This is power. This is authority. These are the people with the guns and the money and the power saying this. Just keep that in mind. Don't dismiss it out of hand. This is dangerous.
Yeah, they try and make it seem like it's some kind of global war against white people.
Cover on that, Scotty.
What's that?
Unless you had any more thoughts on that.
Well, like I was just saying, they trying to act like it's some kind of global war against white people when the global war has been against non-white people.
Always. There's no time in history that I know of where white people have ever been oppressed by black people as a whole. And even the massacres that they love to talk about, like, what Nat Turner did and Denmark Vesey, usually that only happened in their minds, because the people never actually got to the point. Maybe Nat Turner did, but most of them never got to the point where they started slaughtering enough people for it to be a slaughter.
And then at most, we're only talking about 25, 30 people, 50 or 60, when you have murdered millions.
Millions. Well, let's talk about some of the other issues that are up here today, because that one is pretty passionate. One of the things I did want to make sure that we mentioned today was what's happening in Baltimore. Like, Baltimore is one of the most corrupt places for police, and every freaking body knows it, man. And I wish Christopher Irvin was listening in. Maybe he'll call in and chime in, and if he is. But apparently Baltimore police, with their own body cams, got caught planting drugs on innocent people and then arresting them. Got caught. It's on their own body cam. Like, how stupid do you have to be to actually have it on the body cam? And the kicker of it is that after this officer was shown on video to have been planting drugs on innocent people who were being jailed in Baltimore's jail, they called the man to testify on another case just a few days later. Like, his ass wasn't corrupt at all. That's nothing, y'all. Come on in here. We can believe his testimony. He's an honest, upright guy who just happens to plant drugs in innocent people's possessions every now and then. It's pretty crazy, Scotty.
No, Max, I wonder if that's in addition to, I think it was 6 to 8 officers who were in that federal indictment on racketeering charges, who were doing the same thing, who were planting drugs and also robbing people. You walking down the street, see somebody, rob them. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they took what is it called? And we'll talk about this in another story, but asset forfeiture seizure to a whole new level. I mean, they was like, yeah, we're not going to be bothered with that paperwork. Just give me the money.
Well, we're running up on our break time, and I'm just going to make a quick statement. When we come back from the break, we'll read this story from Baltimore. But remember this, people. Legality don't mean nothing about right and wrong. because every horrible thing that has ever been done to man, by man, has always been legal. We'll be right back after these messages.
Talk Radio Network. For podcasts and live program scheduling, visit us on the web at blacktalkradionetwork.com.
Welcome back to New Abolitionist Radio. Before the break, I was talking about all those things being legal. I mean, just think about slavery and everything that went on inside slavery. All the brutality, the horror, the experiments that they did on people's bodies, the torture, the oppression, all of that was legal. People walked up and down the street every freaking day in their beautiful dresses and wonderful suits, waving hi to each other, while just a few feet away from them, some of the worst atrocities in human history were happening right under their noses. Very much like today.
Right in front of their faces, Max. Under your nose means that you didn't know. It was under my nose, like it was hidden from you. No, it was right in your face. Just like it's right in your face today. But you're calling this something else.
All legal. So this story that comes out of Baltimore, I got from Fox 5 News, and it's a 90-second clip. If you want to play the clip, Scotty, we can do that. There's a 10-second thing where you got to wait for the commercial if you want to cue it up.
I got to refresh my page, actually. So is it on? Okay, there it go, because we got a lot.
I posted on New Abolitionist Radio. I usually put them up there first before I mention them, or while you're talking about something. I'll put it up there. But this clip is like 90 seconds. During that time, you see, remember, you got to watch the video, but they'll narrate most of it. You'll see the 3 city officers in an alley. One officer is seen returning to the spot where the 3 were just standing. He picks up a can and pulls drugs from it. This is the same can, it appears, he placed the drugs in just a few seconds earlier. The case was scheduled for trial last week. After a public defender reviewed the footage, he contacted the prosecutor in the case. In an email, the prosecutor says, "I passed it up and we're all appalled. Something is going to happen because of this revelation." The next day, charges are dropped, but days later, the same officer is called by prosecutors to testify in another case. You all right there, Scotty?
I'm getting to foxbaltimore.com right now. Hold up.
All right, no doubt, man. It's a damn shame, man. And we go into the assumption that cops are corrupt when you bust them. Like, they weren't corrupt before that. The moment you busted them is when they started doing these things. And we have been saying here for years now that there should be some kind of law. It has to be required that any time a policeman is caught and convicted, or not just policemen, but policemen, prosecutors, public defenders, judges. Anytime anybody has people's lives in their hands like that are prosecuted for corruption, everything that they've ever worked on needs to be reviewed. Now, I know that's a lot of work for lifetime employees, like judges who've been on the bench for 40 years, or cops who have been on force for 25, 30 years, but there are people who are in prisons and jails or possibly dead that need justice and freedom. And we just tend to forget them. Like, he just got corrupt today. He never did nothing to nobody else ever. This is the first time.
All right, Max.
It needs to be. All right, well, here's the video so you can hear it yourself. I think it's only 2 minutes long.
On a Baltimore police officer's body camera appears to show a city officer manipulating evidence. A video that tonight has led the Baltimore Police Department to launch an investigation. The clip runs less than 90 seconds. During that time, you see 3 city officers in an alley. Seconds later, audio of the officers begins to be recorded.
I'm going to check here. Hold on.
The officer is seen returning to the spot where the 3 were just standing, picking up a can and pulling drugs from it. The same can that it appears he placed the drugs in seconds earlier.
He retrieves it right from the space where he had just put it.
Debbie Katz-Levy is with the Public Defender's Office.
Our initial reaction was complete shock. This is something that we argue in court all the time, and we never actually get to see it live on camera.
Last week, the case was scheduled to go to trial, but then a public defender noticed this first frame of footage. Take a look. It appears as if the officer has a can in his hand that he's placing a baggie in. Details the public defender outlined in this email to prosecutors on the eve of the trial. The state writes back saying, quote, "I've passed it up. Something is going to happen because of this revelation." The next day, charges are dropped. But then days later, the same officer is called by prosecutors to testify in another case.
So they had knowledge, they watched it, they were appalled by what was on the video, and then, for whatever reason, made the choice to continue to call him as a witness.
The state's attorney's office confirms the case was dropped, and a supervisor was told about this video and what it appears to show. The Baltimore Police Department issued this statement that says, quote, "We take allegations like this very seriously, and that's why we launched an internal investigation into the accusations. We are fortunate to have body-worn cameras, which provide a perspective of the events as reported."
A perspective. The truth is a perspective. Because there's an alt truth, where something else could have occurred. Like, he could have just been controlled by aliens.
I mean, now the prosecutor's office, district attorney office, sees this, right? That's a crime. That's a crime. That falls under corruption in public office. I probably asked, how these prosecutors love to stack charges. I'm sure they could find plenty of charges to stack on him. But no, did they view it? Oh, we're troubled by this. We kicked it upstairs. And then next week you calling this dude in as a state witness instead of calling him in to arrest him. See, this is why the whole system can't be reformed. It has to be abolished. There's no reform in this, people. You say, oh, there's just a few bad apples. Okay, which one in this out of these three was the bad apple? Or were they all bad because they all watched them do it? And then nobody stop them, then nobody say nothing. They just all went along with it.
Did you hear them laughing in the background
yes.
when they were doing it?
So what did they do? Plant these drugs in this lot and then wait for somebody to walk by and then say, oh, I saw, what was that I saw you throw over there? And then, oh, they go find it. The drugs that they planted.
I'd like to know where they got the drugs. Did they steal them from the evidence room? And if they didn't steal them, did they buy them illegally from a drug dealer? Did they confiscate them from a drug dealer? Were they approved by officers superior to them in order for them to use the drugs for this purpose?
I mean,
there's a lot of questions that rise from this.
Those were some pretty big rocks, Max.
Yes, they were. I mean, was that their own personal stash, like a throwaway gun? You have some throwaway crack. Is Dave Chappelle so on point? It is unreal. That is surreal. Sprinkle a little crack on them. And wasn't it Baltimore that did the same thing to a local store owner, where the Baltimore policeman got caught on video going into the store, putting a vial of crack on the counter?
That was that undercover officer, right? He had, yes. He was undercover. Or the one in Michigan, where the black man who worked for one of those auto companies up there on his way home. And it wasn't in Detroit, it was in Flint, I think, or Inkster, one of those little suburbs around Detroit. And then he beat the dude up too and planted drugs. Man, this happens all the time. I remember stories out of Alabama. Remember those stories of the whole narcotics thing?
The whole police force.
Oh,
targeting blacks on purpose.
These are not isolated incidents, people.
Yeah, and that's why the other story kind of ties into this one, Scotty, in regards to the study that they did, finding out that in cities with a higher black population, they rely more on tickets and fees and court fines and such for city revenue. Like, this is why. This is what they're doing. That they're out. Black communities, minority communities, poor white communities are like Walmarts to the prison industrial complex. Shop until you drop. Cops come in and get all the bodies that they need. No matter how big their quota is, they will always find more, because every single one of y'all are breaking some law or doing something criminal. And if you're not, they'll just make some shit up. As simple as that. And grab as many of y'all as they need so they can get their brother-in-law Bubba can get a job in the prison. Their cousin Arthur can get a job on the police force. The other cousin can work with the tow trucks. Another one can work with the bail bonds. And it just creates this whole economy around nothing but oppression and slavery.
Well, you know what's different, though, about post-1865 slavery as opposed to pre-1865 slavery? See, pre-1865 slavery, it was only the wealthy whites that was in on it. Maybe a couple of, overseers might be hired on or something like that. But for the most part, they didn't have jobs. That's why people was trying to figure out, how did they convince these poor white people to pick up arms and go risk their lives when they didn't own slaves? They didn't have slaves working for them or putting money into their pocket. They wasn't profiting from slavery. How did they do it? They used racism. Again, racism as a tool of slavery. Oh.
And selective policing.
Yeah. Yep. But now here we are in post-1865, and now they have cut in a huge segment. That's your police officers. That's your jail workers. That's your prison guards. That's your third-party vendors and private contractors and
mental help.
Wow. So they have actually made a huge part of the population dependent on slavery, including people who look like me, Max.
Yeah. You break them, you punish them, you fix them, you break them. You punish them, you fix them, you break them. It's just like this big cycle of human suffering. And it just generates so much revenue that it's able to, empower the people who are operating within it. And you're right, that is a big difference, Scotty, from the pre-antebellum slavery and this what we have now. Because, a little boy, 12 years old in China, could buy stock today in private prisons and be a slave owner. Just that quick. He could go online, don't matter what his age is or where he's at or whatever you got going on, they have let everybody in on the market now. So you could just go ahead and press a couple buttons on the internet, and poof, you own slaves. You got 100 shares in CCA or Geo Group or 1,000 shares or 1,000,000 shares. That represents people. We get so confused because they turned us from slaves to criminals with one amendment. And then they put us with real criminals and said, pick which one is the criminal. Because, we're all criminals in their eyes. We've been criminalized and demonized. So, good people like a Sandra Bland could end up sitting next to somebody who just committed 12 murders. And, every single sentence, I don't care if you spend a night in jail or the rest of your life in prison, every sentence is a possible death sentence. Every one of them. Yeah. Well, let me get this story.
But Max, I do. Man. I'm sorry, but that just really came to me, man. But that's how long and how hard we study this issue, that we can pick up on the subtle differences that they use to keep it going.
Right. You just get everybody involved so they're all invested in it. Like, you can't stop. Like, really? You're going to quit your job as a prison guard that you've been in the last 20 years? You're going to stop being a cop now because slavery exists? Really? You're going to give up your home, your car, your mortgage, your alimony, all those things you have to pay for that depend on nothing more than how many people are going into goddamn cages? That's, you're just going to get that? No, they're not going to do that. They're invested. And they create more ways to invest. So even people all over the world can be invested in slavery and human trafficking. Well, here's this study. Read some of it, but not all. And it comes from Vox. And it says, if you want to stop police from disproportionately ticketing black communities, a recent study has one potential answer: elect more black people to local government. We'll start off by saying I don't necessarily agree with that, but let's move on. The study by political science researchers Michael Sances of the University of Memphis and Ha-Young Yu of Vanderbilt University had two major findings. Using data from more than 9,000 cities, the researchers first found that cities with larger black populations rely more on fines and court fees to raise revenue. The average collection was about $8 per person for all cities that get at least some revenue from fines and fees. But that rose to as much as $20 per person in the cities with the highest black populations. So it more than doubled from regular cities to ones with high black populations. The findings persisted even after controlling for other factors, such as difference in crime rates and the size of cities. Then the researchers wanted to look at how much this disparity would be alleviated if at least one black person is on the city council. Using a smaller sample of about 3,700 cities due to data limitations, they found that having at least one black person on the city council reduced the relationship between race and fines by about 50%. Wow, man, that's not a few points. That's half, just one person on the city council. What a lot of cities do is rely on a source of revenue that falls disproportionately on their black residents, Sances told me. And when blacks gain representation on the city council, this relationship gets a lot better. The situation doesn't become perfect, but it becomes alleviated to a great extent. The study does not prove causation, and the researchers caution against drawing definitive conclusions from just one study, although they tried to control for all sorts of variables that could explain the findings. It's always possible that something else is going on that they missed. The researchers hope to address some of these limitations in future studies. We provided the link to this and the study at New Abolitionist Radio for you to peruse through it yourself and see what it has to say. But there's more to the story, so take the time and read it when you get the opportunity. Scotty?
Max, it's just wonderful that people are using technology as it should be used, and that's to inform yourself and to gather data and information and to inform others. So, I just want to thank all of those people out there who have been researching this. And, we did the report, Ferguson is America. And we identified these patterns and practices in cities and towns all over America, and that's why we called it Ferguson is America. You and Johannen came up with that.
We predicted what they were going to find out in Ferguson. And then when they did find it out, it was like, well, you're going to find that everywhere. Right. Every city and every county is going to have the same damn thing. And we've shown that to be true.
Yes, sir. So that's all I got to say is good job. So, because when you make an accusation or allegation that something is happening, you can't just give anecdotal little stories and I think this is what happened or I believe this is what happened. You have to know what you're talking about. And this just provides more evidence onto the mountain of evidence that slavery was never abolished, man.
This also points to institutional racism, like as in a proof of institutional racism. The study shows that if you have no black people on the city council, not as mayor, not as governor, just the city council, that the amount of fees and fines will increase by 50%. And if you put just one black person on it, because you now have a relationship with somebody black on the city council and they have someone to represent them, it reduces it by a full 50%. Now, if that's not a proof of institutional racism, then what is? Yeah, it's worth looking at and studying for those who want to know or need to know and use the information to make a difference. So you can arm yourself with these things here that we're providing here with you every day. Scotty, any other comments on that? If not, then I think I'd like to hear something from you, as a matter of fact, about the civil asset forfeiture and Jeff Sessions. He's already advanced the cause of criminalizing marijuana while, making meth and, they're attempting to make meth and heroin legal, but they're going to prosecute marijuana users. But yeah, I'd love to hear about what's going on with the civil asset forfeiture.
Yeah, Max, I'm working behind the scenes and multitasking. If you could post that story for me so I could easily get to it on New Abolitionist Radio.
Yes, sir. I'm going to put it up right now.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate that, but
there you have it.
It taught me, man, I'm starting to look, it's some terrible things happening here in North Carolina, but I am encouraged. Because I found out from this article that this is actually illegal in the state. And we just recently raised the age to 18 to prosecute someone as an adult. They had to be 18. So we've been making some strides in the state. And I was, and Stacey George, when he talked about he wants to model his program where he wants to pay. Now, they're not paying prisoners here $10 an hour, but he said he wants to model it after North Carolina, which provides a education, a real education in a job skill or a trade, So I'm finding out things about North Carolina that I think are should be duplicated. But again, they still practicing slavery too. So for all the good works, that comes all to naught when you got that big old sin on your ledger. So, need to end slavery, North Carolina. But let me pull that up for you, Max. Let me see. It's on New Abolitionist Radio on our Facebook page. Give me just a moment as I refresh the screen. Y'all bear with me. I'm trying to
for those that are new listeners, by the way, we haven't mentioned it tonight. Sometimes we treat it like the obvious thing. But the key element that we talk about a lot is the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which says slavery shall be abolished in the United States and all its territories, except for prisoners duly convicted. And we firmly believe and have shown beyond a shadow of a doubt that this exception has been exploited prior to it even being adopted up until now.
Okay, so this is an article that comes from North Carolina. The CarolinaJournal.com. Carrie Travis wrote this article. She says it soon will be easier for the feds to take your property even if you're not convicted of a crime. U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced Wednesday that federal law officials will expand civil asset forfeiture, meaning they can more easily take your property without pressing criminal charges or following state laws. Now, y'all want to tell me again how free this country is and how great this country is, and because we've been talking about the billions of dollars that they've been ripping off from citizens in this civil asset forfeiture already. We talked about it on this program, and now they're going to expand it. But you want to be focused on some real Americans out there protesting against slavery and the brutality of slave catchers. You ain't even focusing on, hey, cops have been empowered to just rob us blind, and they've been robbing us on the street without even convicting us of a crime. See, this is how foolish it is. This is how racism easily distracts people. Okay, so civil asset, and then of course when it's made up and it's not even real, ain't no Black Lives Matter practicing no racism against nobody. But U.S. Civil asset forfeiture laws are the best way to fight drug crimes, according to Jeff Sessions. He said in a new directive that would reverse Obama-era protections against such laws. Look, Max, you correct me if I'm wrong. I do not. I remember them cutting back. But they did not abolish this program under the Obama administration. See, that was the thing about
Obama's famous for smoke and mirrors. What they did was say they were going to review it and possibly take it out. And then it was like a year later, they came back and said they changed their mind and they were going to actually advance it. And then Jeff Sessions came along and said he's going to certainly advance it.
Okay. So in a press release, Sessions said civil asset forfeiture is a key tool that helps law enforcement defund organized crime, take back ill-gotten gains, and prevent new crimes from being committed, and it weakens the criminals in the cartel. So they've been doing this since what did our research show? The 70s is when
you mean with the asset forfeiture?
Yes.
I can't really say with any certainty.
I believe it was the 70s, if I recall correctly. I would say I'm 95% sure it was in the 70s when they first introduced this, the federal government, that is. So the practice which allows law enforcers to confiscate money and property for probable cause of drug crimes is legal in many states. It became especially popular during the Reagan administration's war on drugs in the 1980s. Civil forfeiture is illegal in North Carolina, but a federal loophole thwarts the state's citizens' protections. Under an equitable sharing program, states can partner with the federal government in forfeiture cases. Since state laws don't apply under the program, North Carolina law enforcement are free to seize property and assets as they see fit. So here we got slave catchers ignoring the will of the people of North Carolina and saying, we don't care. We don't care, North Carolina, what your laws are. Okay, we going to partner with the feds and we going to rob you blind. And then we're going to split the booty. I'm disgusted by this. Max has posted this article at from CarolinaJournal.com on our page on Facebook, New Abolitionist Radio.
Yeah, I posted that, Scotty, and a number of other articles to really drive this thing home that you can see, and you can see the pattern and practice of what's going on here. At least 2 other countries have warned their citizens to be wary of the police in the United States because they will rob you. Those countries being Canada, who officially warned their citizens that law enforcement in the United States will pull them over and seize their cash. And the other one was the Bahamas, who gave a very similar warning to their citizens traveling to the United States. Beware the police cash grab. And both of those articles are available. And then we also have the expose from 2014, where News Channel 5 investigates policing for profit. Just one of the many exposés that have shown how they exploit this to the upwards of the possibly tens of billions of dollars, where they can pull you over. Say one brother, I remember in one of the videos, was taking money to another state to buy a car that he had contacted, or I guess online or Craigslist or something like that. He had like $4,000 or $5,000. He's driving along. Cops stopped him, took his money, said that it's possible drug money, and then never gave his money back. And they don't have to give you that money back. Now, like, they don't have to give you the damn money back. They can just take your shit for no reason at all, say it's suspected, and then auction it off. And the money goes to paying police salaries, police bonuses, buying new gear and equipment for police, all of these things that end up where you see a chief of police making $500,000 in salary. $500,000 in salary for a chief of police. I don't know where chiefs of police make worth $500,000 in salary, but apparently that's the way it turns out with a lot of these asset seizure laws that are going on now.
It's robbery, man. That's all.
The fox is in charge of the hen house right now when you're talking about these good old boys up there in the White House. We warned you. We told you what was going to happen. And it's only going to get worse until you finally stand up and look at the world as it is and not as you think it is.
But, you know, we supposedly got all these good cops out here, these good law enforcement officers, and they've been robbing Americans of billions of dollars. So, you know, facts don't matter long as you got the propaganda media on your side to drill in your head. again, I'm not trying to paint cops with a broad brush and what have you. I've never been mistreated by a police officer where I live. They've always been quite respectful. They never taken any of my property or anything like that. But I can't go off of what I see happening to me. I have to take a broader view, and that's what's happening to other people. And this amount of money, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of cops, so-called, just doing their jobs to protect us. Yeah, what? Protect us from spending our own money on frivolous things? I mean, what? What? How are you protecting us? By taking from us. And then we're paying you on top of that. We're paying you to rob us. Oh, my goodness.
Hey, best hustle in the world, ain't it? The people who you oppress pay you for it.
We have a call, Max.
Yeah. All right, no doubt. Let's take our caller, and then we're going to get into our final segments after that. Caller, welcome to New Abolitionist Radio. State your name and where you're calling from and your question or comment.
646.
Peace, everyone. Peace, Brother Scotty.
Peace, Tag.
Peace, Brother Max.
Tag.
I'm calling from the other state that had people being enslaved as adults, even though they were not adults. And so I just wanted to speak toward that, because I had not even heard that North Carolina had changed its law as well. But New York State, brought out the so-called Raise the Age law in April of this year. And I just found it quite interesting that these two remaining states that for years had been the last states in the U.S. To be charging juveniles as adults just so happened to, within a couple of months of each other, suddenly kind of see the error of their ways, so to speak, and raise the age. I just found that quite noteworthy.
Indeed. Scotty? And welcome back, brother.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, Tag, you're right. I knew that North Carolina was one of the two states that had not raised the age to 18, and I was happy to find that out through the ACLU. I subscribed to their Facebook page, and they sent it out, saying this was the right thing to do and how they had advocated for it. So, trending in the right direction, but still we ain't getting to the root of the problem. And that problem is slavery.
Exactly, Brother Scotty. And part of what I find so intriguing about this concession, if you will, is that, yes, that's extremely important. But, I haven't been, I just heard about the North Carolina passage of the bill, so I will be looking into it. But I know with respect to the New York State bill, there are a lot of flaws, and there's a lot that was held back with regard to the question of, who is an adult and who isn't. And so my mind immediately went to a discussion in Huey P. Newton's work. I'm pretty sure that it was revolutionary suicide, and he speaks about the safety valves that the system, will very carefully, turn one way or the other as a means of stemming the tide of resistance to what it is that they implement. So it just struck me as one of these strategic concessions where, it's not retroactive. So those who were tried as adults and are still inside, who were, not yet adults, they can't appeal on that basis, at least to my knowledge, in New York State. That might be different in North Carolina.
I have not heard, Max. I'm sorry, Tag. That was not part in the reading. That when I was trying to read up on it, it did not make it retroactive. Sort of like how Barack Obama was getting patted on the back for reducing the crack cocaine disparity, but then behind the scenes in court, Eric Holder is fighting to stop these people from getting out retroactively under the resentencing guidelines. So you're right on point, Tag, and Huey P. Newton is correct. As our great revolutionary ancestor, is that they will make concessions. They will make concessions to just get you to be like, oh, that's such a great victory. Our job is done. No more children are being tried as adults. Okay, but no, that we can't stop there. We can't stop anywhere short of crossing the finish line of abolitionism.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Scotty, man. If only we could impress upon so many more that the key domino to knock all of this down begins with the 13th Amendment.
Oh, Tag, I want to actually thank you and our abolitionist comrades in your area. I haven't gotten that information on what it's going to take for y'all to set up a satellite rally in solidarity with the D.C. rally on August the 19th, but we'll get that information to you as soon as possible, as soon as we hear back.
That would be great. Much appreciated. And we'll be discussing those plans a little bit later this week. So, any updates on that are much appreciated. Either way, we'll be putting it together, and even if it's not on the same day, it will be in that same spirit.
Yeah, because you don't need anybody's permission, But, I mean, it's great that you reached out to make, an official connection. Yeah,
that's the thing that we really have to focus on now is just as a group of abolitionists is to get the word out more and more. Even if all you can do is have like a support rally in your city, then do it. I mean, we should have support rallies in every city for people that couldn't make it for whatever the reason. But the primary goal should be to get up and get to D.C. one way or another.
We got another call, Max, and we'll just forego the last break so that we can get in our segments. But we got Brother Braggs. Brother Braggs, what's on your mind?
Peace and welcome, brother.
Yes, sir. Peace, fellas. I was just wondering, are you guys familiar with Judge Anna?
Judge Anna?
Judge Anna. Let me mention her to you then. This report comes from the Maine Republic email. It first went out on November 28, 2015. Alaska State Judge Anna Von Ritz, Anna Marie Renziger.
Yes, I've read.
Open letter to all federal agents, including FBI, U.S. Marshals. Well, she's saying that they instituted a bogus government without the people's permission. This is a great article. I won't read it, but I was wondering, you guys can pull it up and look at it on the Maine Republic mailalert.com.
Yes, I have read it before. The Alaska State Judge, Anna Von Ritz, and what she wrote in regards to that. We've shared it from New Abolitionist Radio before. I'll do it again today, too, because it is worth reading. Thank you for the reminder.
The Pope just abolished all corporations on the 17th. It's called, I don't even want to try to pronounce it because I'll wreck that word. But he dissolved all corporations. I think I sent it to you, Scotty. If you get a chance, take a look at that. I
heard you talking about it on Tando Radio Show. I did get those links. I just haven't been able to review them all. But I like to see that actually happen here in the United States. I don't think it will happen because these bad boy slavers, look, it took a civil war the last time to put them down. It may take another civil war to put them down. But, that would mean then that the United States, it's a corporation, could be dissolved.
He put it into all corporations. So
right, United States.
They're illegal now. It's something called proportional. I can't pronounce the word, but it's a law. And what that law means, they got to make all things right.
But
this is departments acting against the law. They're going to be they're supposed to be prosecuted from now onward because he's calling them all criminals.
Well,
he's calling Congress policemen. If you're not an oath of office, you're a criminal, man.
The Pope doesn't have an army to come arrest nobody and put nobody on trial. In fact, I would say that he might need to be on trial with his Nazi background, but that's neither here or there, but I hear you.
The Pope runs this world. The three-city state is what's run this world, the Vatican.
Well, I would like to see it happen.
The military branch of the three-city state.
Well, I would like to see it happen. That's why they go from place to place starting war. We the military branch. That's the only thing we do. We go to war. London is the money, and the Vatican is the religious arm, and that's the three-city state. Well,
serious stuff, man. These boys have a standing army. They got the United Nations. The Vatican ain't no joke.
Well, does the Vatican know about slavery? Does the Vatican know that slavery is legal in the United States? Perhaps we need to send him an email.
All the slavery, Scotty, they still finance.
Okay.
The Vatican's at the bottom of all this. The Jesuits, these boys at the bottom of all this stuff. The conquistadors, man, these boys are in this deep. Germans, they all in this deep. Because this country was founded on slavery. They came to our country. They started enslaving the indigenous. That's where it began. Enslaving the women and children. That's where it began. And that's where we at right now. They're still doing the same thing. It's just a different time. Same game.
Right. All right. Appreciate that input from Brother Braggs. We got, I got to get caught up on this next program. So, Max, you want to take us to our next segments?
Yes. We'll go into our regular scheduled segments, and just give me a second here, and I will pull up out of there. I will pull up our rebellion that we will be remembering today, and the segment For Freedom's Sake: A History of Rebellion. We will be remembering the 1733 St. John's Insurrection. The 1733 St. John's Insurrection, one of the earliest slave revolts in North America, saw a group of African slaves effectively conquer the Danish-owned island of St. John. At the time, most of St. John's slaves were part of the Akan, an African people from modern-day Ghana. Plagued by widespread illness, droughts, and harsh slave codes, in November 1733, a group of high-ranking Akans began to plot against their Danish masters. The rebellion began when a group of slaves used smuggled weapons to kill several Danish soldiers inside a fort at a plantation called Corral Bay. Another 150 conspirators soon converged on the island's other plantations, killing several white colonists and eventually seizing command of most of St. John. The slaves planned to claim the island and its valuable farmland as their own, but their freedom was ultimately short-lived. After only 6 months of Akan rule, in May 1734, several hundred French troops arrived and violently put down the rebellion. It was not until 1848 that slavery was finally abolished in the Danish West Indies. And we here at New Abolitionist Radio remember St. John's Slave Revolt.
Salute.
Salute, indeed, brother, indeed.
But you know what, Max?
We're coming up on...
Every time I hear that this country or that country abolished slavery, I don't trust it. I don't trust it because they might have their own exception clauses.
They might just have their own exception clause. That is for sure, man. All right, well, our next one will be our Rider of the 21st Century Underground Railroad. As Scotty has mentioned, we won't be doing our Abolitionist in Profile this week. I'll provide you with that information that I mentioned, by the way, Scotty, so you can start figuring out how we can work it out. Our Rider of the 21st Century Underground Railroad is Desmond Ricks. Prosecutors in Detroit have dropped all charges as his murder conviction was thrown out June 1st after serving 25 years in prison. And this comes from U.S. News, AP by Ed White, Associated Press. Detroit, AP. Prosecutors in Detroit have dropped all charges against a man whose murder conviction was thrown out last week after he served 25 years in prison. An analysis of 2 bullets shows they didn't match the gun that was offered as the murder weapon at the 1992 trial. Desmond Ricks was exonerated after making a provocative claim that Detroit police framed him for the fatal shooting of a friend outside of Iran. The Wayne County Prosecutor's Office says Ricks won't face a second trial. The hearing lasted just minutes Thursday. The 51-year-old let out a sigh and shook hands with lawyers and students from University of Michigan Law School who represented him in his effort to reopen the case. Judge Richard Scott said he hopes Rick enjoys his newfound freedom. And we here at New Abolitionist Radio remember and salute you, my brother Desmond Ricks.
Salute.
Welcome to freedom, brother. Welcome to freedom. So just this June, after 25 years, man, in the 90s, they were just throwing us into prisons and making up all kinds of stories. Like, that's a time when the prison population just started exploding. You had Donald Trump writing articles about killing blacks and Spanish people, calling them, what did Hillary call them? Scotty Reed?
Super predators.
Predators, super predators. And they was just, and they were talking about billions of dollars into policing. They hired 100,000 new cops, built all these new prisons. That was a terrible time. They was rounding us up like it was, but like we were ripe wheat.
But I mean, also, when she was out there calling non-white people super predators and stuff, I mean, that's on the same level of this recent NRA video that we just listened to today. Same stuff.
Right. This is what I'm talking about. Why, I try to stay on point with this and let people be aware. It's leading to another tragedy. On a level that's past, it always gets worse. So if you think the 90s was bad, you wait until 2020 and take a look around you. There was an article came out earlier today that I shared. It said, right now, there are more slaves, and they're talking about illegal slavery, on Earth than have ever been recorded before. All across the globe, people are practicing slavery, physical, literal, chattel slavery, one way or another. So they'll exploit it here in America where they can legalize it and call it doing good and being righteous. We're taking care of those criminals for you, y'all, so you could be safe. And don't worry about the poor people. Don't listen to them. They're uneducated. They don't know what they're talking about. We're doing you a justice, protecting you from those people over there. All right, Scotty. We got about 12 minutes left. So any closing statements that you want to put out there?
I mean, we can close out a little earlier so I can shut down the conference and restart it for Mind, Body, and Spirit coming up at 10 o'clock. If we can just do that, about 5 minutes till will be great. So that gives about 11 minutes. I just want to implore everyone to take it upon themselves to just tell somebody that slavery was never abolished, that the 13th Amendment has an exception clause, that Lincoln made a concession to the Confederates to bring them back into the Union, and that was that they could keep practicing slavery. Because remember, his intent was never to abolish slavery. He says so himself. His intent was to keep the Union together. And if he could solidify them rejoining the Union by giving up the victims of slavery who just got emancipated, subjecting them right back to it, I don't believe he would have hesitated. And he didn't hesitate. So it's not a matter of my opinion. It's not a matter of I feel that slavery exists or it looks like slavery. No, it's slavery. Their Constitution, the supreme law of the land, says it's slavery. So tell people it's slavery. Just like these Jehovah's Witnesses, they send out, people to knock on doors and tell you about whatever it is they tell you about, because I ain't never took the time to listen to one. But then you have other people who they call it witnessing in the Christian vernacular, where I want to tell you about my Savior, Jesus Christ. Well, same concept. Tell somebody. Make it your mission to tell somebody that slavery has never been abolished. This evil institution exists. We can see the many different symptoms, but, it really points to the disease, and that's the disease of slavery and human trafficking. And if you can do that, man, you just don't understand the kind of ripple effects that it has. You just don't understand. You may think that you haven't done nothing, that ain't going to do nothing, and it's going to, only be a small impact. But that person, you know how the saying goes. One person tells another person, that person tells two people, those two people go tell two people, and it just keeps multiplying and multiplying until we have a multitude of abolitionists ready to throw down to end slavery. So those are my final comments. Join us August 19th in Lafayette Park, across the street from the White House that enslaved Africans built for perhaps the largest abolitionist rally ever to occur, at least since post 1865. Thanks, Max.
No doubts, Brother Scotty. Right on point as always. I'll keep it short because I know you want to reboot so you can get everything going. We really need to stop helping corporate media and racist devils demonize us by spreading frivolous news stories about people of color or focusing on our internal arguments like media gladiator fights. The next time you share a story about how vicious, stupid, mean, inhuman, evil, or horrible a black man or woman is, think first, why am I sharing this? How does it help? Who does it help? And as to our internal arguments, like what's going on with Kirkpatrick and Vic right now, remember this. Racists love to use black people as proxies for their narratives so they can have a black face to point at and say, look, he or she said it, not us. We just agree. After 400 years of indoctrination and its assimilation, you can best believe there are more than enough people who will ignorantly repeat what they think are their own thoughts and be wrong. There are enough train wrecks to watch already. Be mindful of the role you play in all of this, and especially one thing in particular. Remember, like Brother T said earlier, Palmetto Star, he's an abolitionist and a revolutionary. Well, abolition is a reason for a revolution, so we can finally know some peace. Peace.
Rise up, 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 rise up. Showtime. Just lift your eyes up. Let your wise rise up. See the signs of the times. If it's time, rise up, rise up. When death and hell dwell among all God's people. When those we chose and trusted have become completely corrupted and inherently evil. When the feast that feeds you starves our father's children. When snuff, porn, and pedo forms begin to get top billing, rise up. When famine claims millions. When justice gives blind eyes to billions. When the Lord's anger is no longer feared. If his protection is gone and your enemies are near. If you've seen the seas spill over and the mountains shake, break, and fall. If the moon ever turns blood red and you can't see the sun at all, rise up. No matter if the prize is high in the skies or deep in perdition. If our leaders are globally despised and always seem to rise through attrition or blatant nepotism.